Welcome to the Deep Dive. Ready to explore some Earth system interactions with me today? We'll be diving into Chapter 14 of your source material.
Should be fascinating stuff.
Definitely. It's kind of like peeking behind the curtain to see how our planet really works.
Yeah, like getting a glimpse of the instruction manual for Earth.
Exactly. So Section 14.1 jumps right into planetary boundaries and Earth limits.
Right.
Can you break that down for us? Like, what exactly are these planetary boundaries?
Well, you can think of them like guardrails for the planet.
Okay, guardrails. I like that.
Yeah, so they define kind of the safe operating space for all of Earth's systems,
Yeah.
So everything can function properly.
So like the boundaries we need to stay within to keep things running smoothly?
Exactly. And scientists have identified 9 key planetary boundaries we got to keep our eye on.
9. Okay, so what kinds of things fall under those boundaries?
Well, there's climate change, obviously.
Right, top of everyone's mind these days.
Then there's things like how we use land, how much fresh water we're using, biodiversity loss.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
Definitely. And even pollution falls under these planetary boundaries.
Wow, okay, so 9 boundaries, covering a whole lot of ground.
It's all connected, you see.
And 14.1 points out that we've already crossed the line on a few of these, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not doing so hot on a few of them.
So which ones are we in the red zone on?
Well, 3 of them have already been crossed. Climate change, biodiversity loss, and nitrogen flows.
Nitrogen flows.
Yeah, basically too much nitrogen from things like fertilizers is ending up in the environment.
And that's throwing things out of whack.
Big time. It's disrupting ecosystems all over the place.
Okay, so exceeding these boundaries, what does that actually mean for us? Like in our everyday lives?
It's not just some abstract concept,
Yeah.
you know? It has real-world consequences.
So give us some examples.
We'll take climate change, for instance. We're already seeing those effects.
yeah.
More extreme weather events like those crazy heat waves we've been having, droughts, intense storms.
Definitely seeing those more and more often.
Yeah. And it's not just an inconvenience either. It impacts food prices, makes certain places uninhabitable. Even global security is at stake.
Wow, so it really hits close to home.
Exactly, and it's not just climate change either.
Yeah.
Think about biodiversity loss, plants and animals disappearing at an alarming rate.
Yeah, that's scary stuff.
It can disrupt whole ecosystems, which impacts everything from the air we breathe to the food we eat.
Right, everything's connected.
And don't forget about those nitrogen flows. Excess nitrogen pollutes our water sources.
So less clean drinking water.
Exactly, and that's a big deal for everyone's health.
So it's all a delicate balance.
It really is.
Kind of makes you think about that old saying butterfly effect, doesn't it? Like one small change can have huge ripple effects.
It's true, and that leads us perfectly into section 14.2, which is all about feedback mechanisms and tipping points.
Ooh, that sounds a little ominous.
Well, it can be.
So what exactly are feedback mechanisms?
Think of it like a chain reaction. One change triggers another and so on, creating a loop.
Okay, I'm with you.
Now there are 2 types, positive and negative feedback.
Okay, so what's the difference?
Negative feedback is like a thermostat. It brings things back to balance, keeps things stable.
Makes sense.
But positive feedback, that's where things can get kind of hairy.
Uh-oh.
That's where those changes amplify each other, pushing the system further and further away from its starting point.
And that can lead to those tipping points we hear so much about.
Exactly. Tipping points are like thresholds. Once we cross them, the system shifts dramatically, often irreversibly.
Okay, can you give us a visual for that?
Imagine you're pushing a ball up a hill, slowly, and then suddenly it reaches a point and just starts rolling down uncontrollably on the other side.
Okay, I get it. Like there's no going back once you hit that tipping point.
Precisely.
So not all feedback is bad, but positive feedback loops are the ones we need to watch out for.
Right. They're the ones that can really throw a wrench in the works.
And 14.2 mentions some pretty chilling examples of those positive feedback loops in action, right?
Oh, yeah, some real nail biters.
Yeah. Like what? Give us the rundown.
Okay, so one example is the melting permafrost in the Arctic.
I've heard about that. Isn't that releasing a bunch of methane?
Exactly. As temperatures rise, the permafrost thaws and releases methane, which is a super potent greenhouse gas.
Oh, not good.
And that methane further warms the planet, causing more permafrost to thaw, releasing even more methane.
Oh, man. So it's like a vicious cycle.
Absolutely. It's a runaway train that can really accelerate climate change.
Yikes. Anything else keeping you up at night?
Oh, yeah. There's the Amazon rainforest deforestation is pushing it towards a potential tipping point.
Oh no, the Amazon is so important.
It is, but if we lose too much of it, it could transition from a lush rainforest to a dry savanna.
And that would be bad because
Because it would release enormous amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, further worsening climate change.
Wow, so it's all connected. These systems are so interdependent.
They really are. It's like a giant web.
This is not just some far-off problem. It's affecting us right now, right here.
Exactly. We're all part of this system.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
Yeah.
And it makes you realize that understanding Earth system interactions isn't about being all doom and gloom. It's about empowering ourselves with the knowledge so we can make informed decisions about our future.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Which brings us to section 14.3, Human-Earth System Interactions. Okay, so we know about the limits, the potential tipping points, and the fact that humans are kind of a big deal in all of this.
We're definitely playing a starring role.
So the big question is, how do we make this relationship work? How do we become a positive force instead of a destructive one? Stay tuned for part 2 of this deep dive to find out. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've covered some pretty intense stuff so far. Earth's limits, those tipping points, it's a lot.
Definitely makes you think.
It does, but now I'm kind of ready for a little dose of optimism. You know, we've talked about how much humans are impacting these systems, but what can we actually do to make things better?
That's the question everyone's asking.
Right, because it can feel kind of overwhelming. Like, where do you even start?
It's true. These are global challenges, but it's important to remember that change happens at all levels, you know?
Okay, so like individual actions can add up.
Exactly. Think of it as a ripple effect. Every action, no matter how small, can create ripples that spread outward.
I like that. So starting with those individual ripples, what are some things we can do in our daily lives to reduce our impact on these Earth systems?
Well, one of the most powerful levers we have is our consumption.
What do you mean?
Well, we live in a world that's constantly telling us to buy more stuff, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But we can resist that, you know? We can start by asking ourselves, do I really need this? Can I buy something used or repurposed?
It's about being more mindful about what we're buying.
Exactly. And that mindset can extend to all areas of our lives, like our food choices, for instance.
Oh, yeah. What we eat has a big impact.
Huge. Reducing our meat consumption, especially red meat, can significantly lower our environmental footprint.
I've been trying to do that, incorporating more plant-based meals into my week. It's a challenge, but worth it.
Absolutely. Even small changes can make a difference. And beyond consumption, there are so many other ways to make an impact. We can drive less, walk, bike, use public transportation more.
Yeah, those are good ones.
We can support businesses that are committed to sustainability. We can even advocate for policy changes that promote renewable energy and environmental protection.
Okay, so speaking of renewable energy, it seems like technology has a big role to play in all of this. What are some of the most promising innovations out there?
Well, renewable energy is definitely a game changer. Solar and wind power are becoming more affordable and efficient all the time.
That's good to hear.
And there are big advancements in energy storage, too, which is key.
Right, because the sun isn't always shining and the wind isn't always blowing.
Exactly. But it goes beyond energy, too. In agriculture, for example, precision farming techniques are helping to reduce water and fertilizer use while increasing yields.
So we can produce more food with less impact.
Precisely. Technology is really opening up some exciting possibilities.
It gives me hope that maybe we can turn things around.
It's definitely a reason for optimism. But it's important to remember that technology alone isn't a magic bullet.
Okay, so it's not just about having the tools.
Right. We also need a shift in mindset, a recognition that we're all part of this interconnected web of life and that our actions have consequences.
So it's about using technology wisely and ethically.
Exactly. One crucial shift is moving away from that siloed thinking where we address environmental problems in isolation. We need to embrace a more holistic, systems thinking approach.
What does that look like in practice?
Take urban planning, for example. Traditionally, cities have been designed with little regard for the environment, but now we're seeing a shift towards more sustainable urban design.
How so?
Well, incorporating green spaces, prioritizing public transportation, promoting energy-efficient buildings. It's a systems-based approach because it recognizes that the built environment is part of the larger ecosystem.
It's about seeing those connections, right? Understanding that everything is part of a larger whole.
Exactly. And when we start to see the world through that lens, it opens up a whole new realm of possibilities for solutions. It allows us to move beyond just fixing problems and start thinking about designing systems that are inherently more sustainable and resilient.
It's a whole new way of thinking.
It is, and it's really empowering because it shows us that we have the power to create the kind of future we want.
That's a great point. This isn't about feeling overwhelmed by the challenges. It's about recognizing that we have the ability to make a difference both individually and collectively.
Exactly. It's about taking action and working together to create a better future.
So how do we translate this understanding into action? How do we build a future where humanity and the Earth can thrive together? Stay tuned for part 3 to find out.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're in the home stretch now, wrapping up our exploration of Earth system interactions.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. Planetary boundaries, feedback loops, human impact. My brain is full.
It's a lot to take in, for sure. It is, but it feels like we're missing one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
The human element. How do our values or behaviors fit into all this?
You're right, that's the key piece. Because at the end of the day, tackling these Earth system challenges is about people.
It is. And if humans are at the root of the problem, then human actions also hold the key to solutions, right?
Absolutely.
But honestly, sometimes it's hard to find the motivation to change, especially when the problems feel so huge and complex.
I hear you. It can be overwhelming. But I think a key is realizing that sustainability isn't just about sacrifice, it's about opportunity.
Opportunity. Tell me more about that.
Well, it's the opportunity to create a world that works better for everyone. Imagine a future where we're living in balance with nature, where our economies are sustainable, and where social justice is a priority.
Okay, that's a future I can get behind.
Right. It's not just about preventing disaster, it's about building something better, something more desirable.
That's a much more inspiring way to think about it, but let's be real, there are going to be challenges along the way, right?
Of course. Systemic change is never easy.
What are some of the roadblocks we might face?
Well, there are powerful interests that benefit from keeping things the way they are. Old habits, cultural norms. This can be tough to shift. And then there's the whole political landscape.
Yeah, no kidding. So how do we navigate all those obstacles and actually make progress?
I think it starts with building bridges, finding common ground, even with people who see things differently. We need to listen to each other's concerns and work together to find solutions that benefit everyone.
That's so important. It's easy to fall into that us versus them trap, especially when it comes to something as complex as climate change.
Yeah, that's a real danger.
But ultimately, we are all in this together. And the good news is more and more people are starting to get that.
I see it too.
There's a growing awareness that our actions have consequences and that we need to work together to create a better future.
And it's not just individuals either. We're seeing businesses, organizations, even governments start to take sustainability seriously. It's not just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do.
That's encouraging to hear. It feels like there's real momentum building.
There is. It might not be as fast as we want it to be, but the seeds have been planted.
And I think with continued effort, collaboration, and a whole lot of innovation, we can create that future where humanity and the Earth thrive together.
I agree.
So to our listeners out there, we hope this deep dive has given you a new perspective on Earth system interactions. Remember, even small changes can make a difference.
They really can.
What will you carry with you from our conversation? What stood out to you?
That's a good question. I think for me, it's that sense of interconnectedness, how everything is linked, and how our actions ripple out and impact the whole system. It's both humbling and empowering at the same time.
Perfectly said. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep believing in the power of collective action.